Okay, so I was reading an article the other day that got stuck in my head. No matter how weird or how far out there it may be, I get to thinking about it, and then I can't get it out of my head. So I want to talk this out with you today. Let me start by asking you a question. Have you ever seen this movie?
This will feel weird.
So the basic point of the movie, besides being all this social commentary, is that the human brain can be downloaded. The consciousness, the essence, you can be downloaded into this machine world, and they can create whatever reality they want for you. The article I came across the other day was from NPR, and it was titled, "Would You Become an Immortal Machine?" I very briefly touched on this question way back in a What Would You Do video, where I asked the question, if you could live forever, would you want to? I'm gonna live forever! As I was having that conversation, the concept of living forever was a complete fantasy. It assumes all kinds of science fiction level stuff about how a human could potentially live forever. Well, here now comes this NPR article that talks about a particular book by an author named Mark O'Connell, and it's called To Be a Machine.
He's more machine than man.
It explores some of the hypothetical questions around the fact that biomedical science has advanced so far right now that we're starting to get a little hint of what the human brain can actually do. Furthermore, a window into how to allow the human brain to control things like prosthetic limbs. So I did some digging and I found a couple of interesting things. I'm going to put aside the philosophical arguments for a second. Would we want to? Should we? I'll come back to that in a little bit. But right now, I just want to talk a little bit about the science behind it, because even though it sounds like complete fiction, and we've seen all kinds of scary things in movies about what would happen if humans become machines.
This universe is mine. I am God here.
We're talking about some real world things right now that are happening that could be moving us in that direction. There is a huge movement out there called transhumanism. Transhumanism is this concept of taking human existence beyond this flesh and blood body.
Luminous means so, not this crude matter.
As it is, there is a large portion of our society that technically lives in a virtual world. What are you looking at right now? You're looking at a screen, and you're having an interaction with another human being through a virtual medium. As a YouTuber, I have to stop and think about that for a second. It's something my wife said a couple of years back that was kind of funny, and it's actually kind of a prescient statement. All of my friends live in my computer. As far-fetched as the concepts of transhumanism may be, we're living in a world right now where connections between the biological and the mechanical are happening. Another article from Popular Mechanics that talked about the breakthroughs that have been happening to allow people to control their prosthetic limbs with signals from their brain. Specifically, a stent device that can be plugged into the brain in one capacity or another. The science is a little above my head, but that would read and interpret the electrical signals of the brain to control motor functions of machinery.
It is an electrode array which is implanted into a blood vessel in the brain.
Brain-machine interfaces.
Record brain activity. We already have devices that know how to translate those signals, control computers or robotic arms with thought if they're trained appropriately.
Should only be a little bit scared that some of the research behind this is being funded by DARPA, which is kind of the United States government's sort of black box research division, looking up stuff that people should probably be a little afraid of. Bottom line is they're figuring out that you can use these devices to remap how the brain interacts with the rest of the body and with the outside world. If you've figured out how to use the brain's electrical signals, your thoughts, to control things in the real world, the next logical step, we're now potentially looking at mapping thought and being able to actually measure consciousness. Got an article that was posted in the Daily Beast last month titled How to Mathematically Measure Consciousness. Now, there's all kinds of disagreement and speculation, and that's wild, crazy science fiction. But just like transhumanism, this is something that over the last 25 years or so has started to pick up steam in mainstream scientific circles. They're talking about this stuff rather than just dismissing it as complete fantasy. You still have lots of neuroscientists and lots of schools of thought that say this is all ridiculous, it's intangible, you can't quantify it. Inevitably, you run up against religious implications for folks that believe that our thought comes from a divine soul.
You have been found guilty by the elders of the town. Blasphemer!
But if this pans out and it turns out that we can measure and understand the nature of thought and consciousness, what's to say we can't duplicate it?
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
So we've done all this work to understand and document and control the way thought happens, because a lot of it's already happening. I don't know that it's a matter of if as much as it's a matter of when. So now we finally come back to the philosophical argument. It's a good chance that we can. The question is if we should. And that's where I have to put it to you guys. This question of if you could live forever, would you want to? It's very quickly moving out of the realm of the impossible and becoming a question that my children or maybe my children's children could be faced with that question. Imagine 50 years from now, you suffer some type of a medical emergency, you're in the hospital, and you find out that there is something terminal wrong with you, cannot be cured, cannot be operated on. You may be presented with the option to have your consciousness transferred. When I asked this question the first time in the What Would You Do video, a lot of folks expressed no, we're not meant to live forever. I don't want to outlive my kids. There's some pretty logical assumptions in that. I think I still land on the answer of, you know what, I might. I think it would be pretty damn interesting to see what becomes of the world 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 100,000 years from now. Assuming that whatever mechanical apparatus I exist in lasts that long. Maybe there's a shelf life. Hey, machines wear out too. If you have an information cloud, that cloud needs a server. Servers break down. It may not be life everlasting, but by golly, it's life for a good long time. There's one more question we have to explore.
Come on, you ape! You want to live forever?
We talked about how, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a matter of if we'll be able to do this. It's a matter of when. We talked about a question of if we should, but I think the final question in this argument is, if you're able to do this and you do it, is it still really you?
Instead of creating an artificial intelligence, he duplicated an existing one.
You're saying that you're able to perfectly map and recreate everything that makes me me. And you're able to download that information and reconstruct it in a digital format. So whatever that thing is, it has my memories, it has my likes and dislikes, my desires, my thoughts, my personality. But is it really me?
At the very best, you'll be making a digital approximation of it. If we missed anything, a thought, a childhood memory, how will you know what you're dealing with?
It can be the most perfect recreation of everything that makes me me. But you're stuck with a pretty big philosophical and frankly, again, religious consideration in this. Is it actually the person, or is it a perfect recreation of them? Does being you rely solely on you existing within this flesh and blood matter? If we are able to mathematically and perfectly recreate the emotion of sadness or joy, are those real sensations when they take place outside of our bodies? It's a big question. It's one that I don't have an answer to. I'm hoping that either our kids or our kids' kids will come up with an answer for it. What do you think about this possibility? Do you think it's completely outside the realm of reason, that it never happened? Or do you think that something like this would be possible? And if you do, what's your answer to the question of, is the downloaded you still you? That was a pretty heavy one. So thank you for taking the time to sit through and talk with me about this. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are new, I certainly invite you to subscribe and come along on the channel. Thank you, friends and YouTube community, as we continue to support each other. Appreciate having all of you guys to talk to and interact with, and thank you for supporting the channel. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the road. Here we go.